Basically, New York City bars and restaurants industry on the verge of collapse, as the article goes on to say that something 90% of many of these businesses can't sustain being open, especially with the current restrictions. They were having a hard time prior to lockdowns. But what we're seeing now is that more of these businesses and jobs are basically going to be lost. And a lot of this is due to mismanagement, as you can't go to church for quite some time. You couldn't go to the gym. And in some states, you still can't do that till this day. But if your mayor or your local governor decides, we're going to lock you down because of the cases, even though the hospitalizations, especially here in New York State, forget about the state has been at an all-time low for quite some time. And you might lose out on your job. Your business might not be considered essential. So the state is more than happy to allow your business to go under, whether your business is a bar or a restaurant, a movie theater. Museums here in New York are being pressured because basically there's no foot traffic in these areas where there's no foot traffic. I mean, I really don't go out as much as I used to. So most of my money basically stays with me, right? So there's a loss of velocity where the money that I earn would go to these different businesses as I go out on dates, or I go to bars and go out to drink and go out to meet people, have a good time. Or I might go out because I need new clothes. So a lot of these retailers are going under because individuals are now staying home more. You really don't need that expensive fancy clothing that you might enjoy wearing when you go out here in New York City. I spent a lot of my time traveling to other countries, especially last year, where I was basically going about 4 or 5 times a year. I would travel outside of the country. So that's a loss to that industry as well. From my perspective alone, that's a lot of money that I'm not spending. So I just basically just invest that money. But that translates into job losses. That those job losses also will translate into pockets of poverty especially within low income. We typically see that within Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, single motherhood, and of course that just ends up being areas that need to be bailed out by the state. Does not bode well. When you look at many of these democratic states, like New York, where the governor is kind of mimicking what's going on in California, where they're not allowing for individuals to some extent visit with their families. In terms of here, what's going on locally with the Jews, the Hasidic Jews here in Brooklyn have basically been protesting for the past, probably for the past week or so. We've seen riots, we've seen mass protests here for various things, typically BLM, trans, LGBT, etc. And these people come out in mass, they will come out. And there will be no police out there trying to wrangle people up. But if the Jewish people try to do it, well, then the governor will send them out. You see the exact same thing in California. In California, of course, where very similar, where you can't go to church or go to temple, the outdoor eating is pretty much restricted, gyms as well. And then you look at in LA, you see stuff like this. And of course, all this is virus related, right? The virus, the virus, the virus. And so they're more than happy to let these areas basically go to shit. They're more than happy to allow these people to go out and you can see most of these individuals are not wearing masks, right? And the police aren't going out there to stop them. You don't see the police out there trying to strong arm anybody. But if you're trying to go to church, well, they're gonna be knocking on that church door. And that's just a reality of what's going on in many of these democratic states. Why it's very important who you put into positions of power. That's just a reality of it. Remember what these individuals did. Have a long memory. Don't be so forgiving for many of these individuals that want to shift the blame. They're the ones that make the choices, right? The governors and the mayors are the ones that make the choices of what goes on in your neighborhoods. It's not related to the president. And as the president said, he's not going to bail out many of these states that are just basically letting their states go to shit and then crying about not having any money to pay bills. He said it's just not going to happen. If you want to run your state that way, then you're going to run your state into the ground. But just remember that he's not going to bail you out.
The Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. You know that, right? Coronavirus. They're politicizing it.